Coding. Today we will look at cross-site request forgery or CSRF attacks and how to avoid them with secure transaction tokens and secure deployment. A cross-site request forgery attack, also known as CSRF, is the less well-known but equally dangerous cousin of the cross-site scripting or XSS attacks. If successful, an attacker can make an end user, let's call her Vicky, execute unwanted actions on a web application to which she is currently authenticated. Through a clever phishing email, he tricks Vicky into visiting his crafted malicious website, which sends a post to the website Vicky was previously authenticated to. Vicky's browser sends the authentication cookie back to the previous site and appears to be making a request on her behalf, even though intend to do so. Brad Guy could use this to change Vicky's password, transfer funds, or purchase items without her knowledge. Sometimes it is even possible to store the CSRF attacks on the vulnerable site itself by simply storing an IMG or iframe tag in a field that accepts HTML.
What can we avoid CSRF attacks?
One way to protect against these types of attacks is using secure transaction tokens. These help a user herself intended to make a request. Every action makes use of a secure random transaction token. This token should be newly generated for each request as a hidden variable in the HTML format tied to an individual session. It can then be verified on the server side before the action is accepted. The transaction token must not be related to the actual session ID in any way. For example, when your web application formulates a request, the application should include a hidden input parameter. The value of this token must be randomly generated so that it cannot be guessed by an attacker.
It's best practice to limit the use of HTTP methods to debugging and not let them be used by the application. All requests should take parameters from either the GET or POST HTTP methods. The request method must never be used. When the request does not perform an action, it should utilize the GET method, for example, downloading a web page. When the request forms an action with an effect on the application, it should utilize the POST method. For example, when changing a password, all parameters sent from the user's browser to the web server must make use of the HTTP POST method. This is to avoid sending sensitive or revealing information as part of the request URL. So wouldn't only accepting POST requests take care of the cross-site request forgery issue?
Unfortunately, no. There are numerous methods in which an attacker can trick a victim into submitting a forged POST request, such as a simple form hosted on the attacker's website. This form can be triggered automatically by JavaScript or by the victim who thinks the form will do something else. Your main goal should be to make it hard for an attacker to know what a valid request for a sensitive transaction looks like.
Using transaction tokens, for example, or requiring users to re-authenticate and out-of-band confirmation for sensitive transactions are all methods that assist preventing this attack.
Most frameworks have built-in CSRF support. Make use of these. OWASP further recommends 2 separate checks as a CSRF defense that does not require user intervention. 1. Check standard headers to verify the request is the same origin. This means both determining the origin the request is coming from, as well as determining the origin the request is going to, the target origin. 2. And check CSRF token. Please go to OWASP to learn more about these.
Yes, and by making sure you follow the secure coding best practices, you will avoid these and all sorts of related flaws.
Let's assume the web application followed all secure coding best practices and we are ready to deploy. There are a few rules to note before going live, right?
Yes, once an application has been developed and is ready to be tested, we need to ensure that it's securely deployed.
To securely deploy your application, do the following. Follow or create a server hardening standard and lock your server down. You can find these documents from organizations such as OWASP, CERT and SANS. Just tailor them for your particular needs. Should you host with any of the major cloud providers, follow their security checklists and hardening guides. These standards will typically ask you to configure all security mechanisms, turn off any unused services, set up and protect accounts, roles and permissions, Disable all default accounts. Enable logging of security events. Where possible, send your audit logs to a central logging server. Ensure you don't log sensitive data, such as credit card data. Monitor for the latest security vulnerabilities and apply security patches after testing these. Perform regular reviews manually as well as using vulnerability scanning tools. Automatic scanning should be done at least monthly. Disable any insecure remote management tools. Secure your data connections by setting up the right accounts and permissions. Configure your servers to support the latest cryptographic protocol versions only, such as the latest version of TLS. Disable any older versions as they may leave your application vulnerable. In summary, please use your framework's built-in support to defend your application against CSRF attacks. Follow secure hardening standards when deploying your application, and frequently conduct audits to ensure compliance with these.